And today I want to share my thoughts and feelings on the Apple Studio display for digital artists, namely concept artists and illustrators, something that I do full-time, something that I teach full-time. And I wanted to wait till the honeymoon period was over. I wanted to get used to them. I wanted to play around with them in my studio, move them from one setup to another and all different kinds of stuff, and see what this thing has to offer. And if it's in your budget, considering the price tag on these things, is it worth it for a digital artist? Now, the reason I'm specifying that is because being somebody who produces YouTube videos, somebody who loves producing videos, and who's been binging on these Apple Studio display reviews from all these different tech YouTubers online, you can go check out, I realized that my needs and my perspective are quite different than the popular opinion due to the nature of my work. And I feel that I'm in many ways a very, very target market and a very important market for Apple. And I've even made a couple of prediction videos in the past on where I felt art tech was going for digital artists in the future. And Apple is falling in line. You can check it out right over here. Okay, just give you some insight on where I feel Apple is going moving forward, and it feels like Apple's really falling in line. So, in order to kind of get the ball rolling and to get you to feel where my thoughts and feelings are on this, I have over here the AirPods Max, okay? The headphones with the absolutely garbage case on them, but made quite a stir in the audiophile scene, which I'm a very big part of. I'm a part of the audiophile scene. I've done lots of audio, video reviews and stuff like that for DACs, amps, headphones, you name it. And when the AirPods Max first came out, the original opinion was, holy shit, look at the price tag on these things. And the reason, and I personally was kind of baffled at the price too, considering that competing headphones cost hundreds of dollars less than the AirPods Max. But I also didn't freak out over the price personally because I'm well aware of how expensive high-end audio can be. And in the audiophile scene, buying headphones for thousands and thousands of dollars, and DACs and amps and the cables and interconnects and the speakers and the stands and the units, the actual audio units and stuff like that for setting everything up, go into the tens, 20s of thousands of dollars and then some. So to an audiophile, he's used to spending a lot of time and money and passion in this kind of thing. An $800 Canadian price tag is like, yeah, it's a budget. It sounds very budget. And audiophiles wouldn't expect much coming from a Bluetooth pair of headphones either, right? It's, if you're used to, high-end audio, hi-fi audio with, very good cables and the whole bit, you're not expecting much. But when I bought them and I picked them up, my first impression was, well, apart from the case, nobody likes the case, the build quality and the comfort on these things is better than headphones that I've worn that are thousands of dollars, $4,000 or $5,000, just for the headphones, okay? So I was very impressed by the build quality. The functionality was beautiful. The materials are absolutely fantastic. And then I put them on my head, and listening to them, I expected my first impression, because I've listened to a lot of Bluetooth headphones, to be, ugh, yuck. But I wasn't. In fact, when it comes to Apple headphones in general, I'm incredibly impressed by how well they tune their headphones. And I put them on and I was like, in all honesty, no, they don't necessarily compete with a pair of $4,500 headphones with a $7,000 DAC amp or anything like that. But it sure as shit holds its own. And I felt like it's a good 90 to 95% of the experience of a cabled pair of high-end headphones hooked up to a DAC amp. And ironically, the AirPods Max were the ones that ended up on my head. And when you look at the price, the build, and the sound quality, and the fact that I ended up selling a lot of my high-end equipment because these are the ones that I just ended up wearing all the time, you start to realize that an $800 price tag is not a ripoff. It's a steal. And why do people get all bent out of shape about the pricing for Apple products? I'll tell you why. It's because they're ambiguous as hell on who their target market is. Their target market, I'm just going to move this so that the screensaver doesn't kick in. Their target market is everybody. Consumers, professionals, and the likes. They've got beautiful looking stuff. It's beautifully built. It looks nice in your studio. And you can see a lot of non-professionals spending a lot of money on this stuff, even though they technically don't need it. They like it. They don't necessarily know all of the little intricate specs and stuff like that, but they know that they like it. And when it came to the Apple Studio Display, when it came out, a lot of people looked at the price tag compared to things that on paper look comparable, like the LG Ultrafine, for instance, the 5K that came out years ago. But I've done a lot of monitor reviews. I've done a lot. The camera equipment that I'm using right now. I've done a lot of stuff for BenQ. I've done a lot of stuff for a lot of different companies. I know monitors, gaming monitors, photography monitors, etc. And when it comes to the price tag on a piece of professional equipment, the price tag of $1,600 American or whatever on something like this is very average. It's a very average price. And most of the monitors out there don't come with high-end speakers, webcam, mic, the interconnectivity, the expanded I/O, and all of these other little bells and whistles that come with an Apple display. But from a professional artist, that's where things get different. That's where things really start to matter in terms of what Apple has to offer. And to give you a really good example, just to explain the specs and the choices and all of that kind of stuff that Apple puts into their stuff, I recently tested out an exquisite photography monitor that's exclusively built for photography. Oh, I realized I still have my Rode XLR clip here. Actually, I like it. It's kind of comfortable. I'll keep it there. It's 32 inches. It's 4K. It's got an incredibly matte screen. It looks like you're looking at a piece of Arches paper, like really nice soft matte paper. It's got these big thick bezels around the edge of it, which is actually a good thing for photography and for image quality. This big black matte box with a velvet interior with a little cable management thing, so you can stick your calibrator right through it. It's got this little what they call a hotkey puck. Hotkey puck, Canadian joke, okay, that has hardware calibration in it. So it doesn't actually use your processor to maintain the calibration. Everything's done in the actual display itself through a chip. And it's built like a tank. It looks very, very impressive and imposing in your studio. It looks like a real pro piece of equipment. And as far as calibration is concerned, it comes with its own calibration. There's a Freudian slip for you, wink, wink. Comes with its own calibration card that comes right in it to show that it was factory calibrated. And incredibly impressive for photography, for print. It's even got print preview mode and all that kind of stuff. I tried out some prints on it. It's absolutely fantastic. But for digital painting, no. It doesn't work because the contrast ratio, the actual calibration, the nits on it is designed to be as minimal as possible, so it's matching what's coming out of a printer as accurately as possible. But print is not my priority. Digital art is my priority. So the big frustration that I've had over the years is the fact that no matter how meticulously, how vigilantly, how carefully I calibrate my monitor, including my Cintiq, which is an artist's panel. It's a pen display that costs over $4,500. 7 years ago, that's a 1440p monitor, but you can draw on it. Favorite thing to draw on in the world. And I can't, for the life of me, get it to perfectly match an Apple screen. I just can't. As soon as I look at it on my iPhone, even iPhones that date years old, I look at it and yeah, the color, it's good enough, but the contrast and the fine-tuned calibration and the reds and the blues are always a little bit off. And very often I end up looking at it on my phone, knowing that that's what my audience is going to be looking at it, on their iPhone or their iPad or their MacBook, or usually, more often than not, it's an Apple display or something well calibrated like that. And I end up having to fiddle with my drawing. Even though it's optically not on what I'm seeing, I'll boost contrasts and saturations and stuff like that, just so that the image looks the way I want it to look on my iPhone. And it's this whole back and forth process, the big pain in the ass, and I never get it perfect. And when it came to the BenQ SW321C, the one I've been talking about, the contrast ratio is so off that I took it, I looked at it on my iPhone, and I said, well, it's not even the same image. Because I cannot preview it with that same range of contrast ratio that I can on my iPhone. It's just impossible. So I couldn't use it for that. For a photographer, if I was into photography and print, I cannot possibly recommend a better monitor. It's pretty bloody impressive. And its ability to mitigate light glare and everything like that is unbelievable. That said, Apple monitors, their iMacs, their MacBooks, their iPhones, their iPads, have absolutely the best calibration. I don't give a crap where you're from. I don't give a crap how much you argue with me. You cannot get a better calibrated monitor on any display that I've tested. The best I've ever come to, for a much more budget option, mind you, are all the BenQ monitors that I have. That's why I end up investing so much in BenQ. This is why I promote BenQ. It's why I do reviews for them all the time. That's why I have 2 BenQ Screen Bar Pluses, it's a little bit of an indication of where we're going to go with the webcam and mic, because I've covered them up essentially with those lights. I'm a big promoter of BenQ stuff, but a lot of other companies I'm just meh. I'm just not impressed. They're not something I can use professionally. So when the Apple Studio Display came out, I was very excited about this, and I was furthermore very excited about the move that they made with the new Mac Studio, which I have behind me as well, and the Apple Studio displays. And again, I'm putting emphasis on the word displays. This, again, plays a very big part in working professionally as an artist. The whole reason I never bought an iMac, and I have tried numerous in the past, apart from the fact that it was Intel and it didn't perform nearly as well as the M1s do, was for the very fact that I've got a gorgeously calibrated iMac screen next to a screen that I know is never going to hold up next to it. And no matter how hard I try going back and forth between different displays, I can never get those images to match. So I decided to go with monitors that didn't have that range of contrast ratio. The calibration wasn't exactly the same, but working between a Wacom and a BenQ monitor, I was happy and I could work with that. But I would be very frustrated having a perfectly calibrated screen next to a not calibrated screen. And furthermore, the fact that I've got a Cintiq, I work as a digital artist, which would mean that I would have to have a Mac that's an all-in-one next to a pen display. How the hell am I going to work out my setup? So I just didn't. I didn't, because I can't work with one display. But Apple have made a couple of pretty amazing moves with their equipment for artists, for professionals. And the Mac Studio, to me, is the domino that's knocking over the whole pack. This is what's setting off that momentum for Apple moving forward. Because what they say, a lot of people are saying as a display, it's a display and it has a webcam and a mic and speakers in it, but I don't want all those speakers and I don't want all that stuff. And I think that the reason people are saying this is because they don't exactly understand. They don't understand why Apple made this move in the first place. What is the limitation of an iMac? Number one, it's one box, it's one chassis. So you've got to cram speakers, processor, graphic card, RAM, mic, webcam, I/O, inputs and outputs. The fact that Apple's been able to pull off what they've been able to pull off in a nice thin little display on a hinge with one plug with no power brick? Dude, wow. But due to its limitations, due to the fact that you can't expand the number of monitors that you're working with, has been a big Achilles heel for professionals. This is one of the reasons why they just couldn't. So what did Apple do? They didn't make a display. No. The Apple Studio Display and the Mac Studio is not a computer and a display. It is an iMac split in half. Think about it. You've got the computer, which is basically a beefed up Mac Mini with much better cooling. Now that it's a bigger chassis, they can put a whole ton of I/O. The I/O on the Mac Mini trumps my Maximus motherboards that I get for my PCs. I deliberately buy Maximus motherboards for my gaming PCs because of its I/O, because I plug all kinds of crap into everything. I've always got tons of things plugged in. So you've got better I/O, better cooling, more powerful chip, and then you just take the display, the webcam, and the mic, out of that and you disconnect it and you create a gorgeous display, and now it's separated. So now you can have multiple displays that you can work with. Mwah! Thank you for finally doing this. You've got great I/O. Now you can beef up the speakers. You can beef up the webcam, wink, wink, potato jaundice mode. I don't like it at all for now. Whatever, I don't care. Better mic, which apparently the mic is great as well. So the only thing is they kind of face planted on that webcam for now, but everything else, it works better. And on top of it, add 3 additional 10 gigabit USB-C ports for expanded I/O every single time you plug in a new display. So having 2 Apple Studio displays behind me means I have 6 additional 10 gigabit USB-Cs. I've got I/O until kingdom come. This is real professional stuff. But none of that would matter. I could scrap all of that for one big thing. Actually 2. The first is much better build quality. I'm very surprised that people are comparing the LG Ultrafine, and the only reason they're comparing it is because of the screen size and the resolution. It's been like kind of an Apple display, it plugs with USB-C. I tested out the LG Ultrafine about 2 or 3 weeks before this was announced, so good timing on that. And I returned it the next day. The screen is glossy and glary as hell, the colors are completely off, the contrast ratio doesn't even compare to it. But most of all, the build quality is not meant to last. That stand, I could practically break, it's so cheap plastic, I could practically break it with my bare hands. And I'm on a standing desk. That thing wobbles a little bit. Just giving it a little wobble, or if I'm drawing and my hand is pressing against that pen display, or if I'm typing, the whole thing starts to do this. I mean, come on. Yeah, okay, I could connect it to a VESA mount, but that's not the point. It's real cheap shit. The whole back of it is really cheap, garbagey plastic. It really doesn't inspire confidence. The Apple Studio Display, everybody's all butthurt about the fact that the Apple Studio Display's upgraded stand, if you want to get the one that rises, is an additional $400, Canadian at least. What's unreasonable about that price? I mean, think about the materials, the engineering, and yes, the design. I'm an artist. I know that design is costly. To get a top paid professional to design something like this is not cheap. The materials are not cheap. The engineering is not cheap. The equipment they use to manufacture these things is not cheap. $400 is not overpriced in my opinion. And a lot of people are getting all bent out of shape because, well, maybe they're consumers and don't realize that this is a professional piece of equipment designed to last. Just saying, okay? But I mean, I'm not dissing, other content creators for goodness sakes, but I'm just saying I don't find that overpriced for what you're getting. If you want cheap, buy the LG Ultrafine. It's good. It'll get you by. If you're not looking to spend a couple of $1,000 on a monitor, you don't have that kind of budget, don't even listen to me. Go out and buy something a little bit less expensive. But if you are spending this kind of money on a display like this, I personally feel that yes, just the display, just the quality of the image, just the calibration, just the build quality and the materials, that alone makes it worth it, not including all these extras like noise canceling, transparency mode, spatial audio. Okay? Those add-ons I don't feel validate the purchase. Those add-ons are on top of the purchase, on top of the quality that you're only getting. But I tapped on the last thing that I find is of utmost importance, the most important element of these displays. It is an Apple display. And why this is so hugely important is because I can have absolute full confidence that when I'm drawing something on my Apple display, then when I save it and then I look at it on my iPhone, I go, that's exactly what I painted. Exactly what I painted. And no, the fact that a lot of people are all bent out of shape because it doesn't do it in XDR. A lot of video producers like to draw in XDR, but video producers are not printing their work. So for me, I do take into account the fact that I usually switch all of my displays into photography mode, which lowers the actual contrast ratio. But most of the time I'm working in 600 nits. I prefer to have things at 600 nits. And I've had these Apple Studio displays connected to my M1 Pro MacBook that I have right over here. And side by side between the two of them, the difference is negligible. And this, the 120 nits, the ProMotion, is negligible. I honest to goodness don't give a crap. And to me, the only time where refresh rate really matters, and it really does matter for me, is when I'm gaming. I just did a review for the X321U, the gaming monitor from BenQ, 32 inches 4K, 144 hertz. Mwah! Chef's kiss. I absolutely love the smoothness of those displays. And before that, I had the XR3501. I had that one for years. One of the first 144 hertz monitors out there at 1080p. I don't give a crap about high refresh rates. 60 hertz for me is perfectly fine. I'm not recording videos at 120 hertz. I'm not painting at 120 hertz. I'm producing artwork. I'm producing 30 or 24p videos. This is shot right now in 24p, not 120p, so I don't give a crap about promotion. And when I'm scrolling on my MacBook and then I scroll on this, honest to goodness, it's really negligible. The only time I care about promotion and stuff like that is, number one, if I'm gaming, and number two, on your iPhone. Because on an iPhone, you're constantly scrolling. I'm not doing that on a desktop so much. I'm flipping between different web pages, so up and down scrolling and stuff like that doesn't really matter to me. Then you add the extras, the webcam, the mic, and everything like that. They work great, but I obviously don't care much about the webcam or the mic because I have screen bar pluses sitting on top of them because I wanted better lighting for my studio. And that basically essentially covers one of the mics and it covers the webcam. So there you go. I like to use an Elgato Cam Link, the 4K, and connect my Sony to it, my Sony camera. And I use that as my webcam to get much better professional color. And when I'm teaching lessons, I can change exposure and lenses and all that kind of stuff for fun. That's what I prefer to do. And as far as mics, I usually plug in some nice mics. I have my, my Rode mics, or I have my Shure mics or everything like that when I'm doing audio recording. So I want to get professional audio and video because I do this professionally. So for me, those extra bells and whistles are not necessary. But if any of those things fail on me, I always have a backup. My only gripe is the fact that, well, maybe they can update it with the firmware, is that since I have two of these things, I'd love to be able to get stereo audio. That would be kind of cool, wouldn't it, right? To be able to actually use them as a stereo pair, just like I can do with my HomePods. I can make a stereo pair with them, which is kind of annoying that it only plays through one speaker, but maybe that's something they can update. As far as the bezels are concerned, the bezels are there to reduce as much as possible any kind of inconsistencies in the lighting all the way to the corner panel. I think that in terms of the Apple Studio displays, it hits around a 97-98% approval rate for me. There's the tiniest little bit of shading along the edges, but that doesn't impact it. You really have to look up close to notice that. Otherwise, you're not even noticing it. It's just the tiniest little bit, especially if you're looking at something very bright. But otherwise, not an issue whatsoever. But if you look at the BenQ SW321C, it's got big, fat, thick black bezels for that very reason, and a big matte box. Professionals don't care about bezels. I don't know why everybody gets bent out of shape about bezels. I think that for what you're getting, the quality, the build, the additional I/O, the longevity, the fact that it connects perfectly with all your different peripherals, the fact that I don't have to wait 15 minutes for my screen to warm up. It's instantly on and all the colors are perfect right out of the bat. And the absolute most freaking exquisite image quality I've ever seen on a display, except for with the only one exception of the Pro Display XDR. But by that much, in all due honesty, it's really not. I don't think the Pro Display XDR is at all worth the price. Although I think the value is there, I don't think it's worth the cost for a professional. And in my opinion, when you're working side by side with two different monitors, I prefer 27 over 32. I think that 32 is better for a single monitor setup, and 27 is better for a dual monitor setup. Okay? So those are my thoughts and opinions. If you can afford it, run to the store and get it. I really do think it's worth it. And as far as working on dual displays, well, for a professional, somebody who does what I'm doing, it's integral, it's essential. And I know I'm gonna be using these for many, many years to come. I'm very happy with the purchase, even after the honeymoon. All right? Thank you for watching and happy shopping. Take care.